I want to ask you about what the president just said. You heard him in that interview saying, quote, wiretap covers a lot of different things. Obviously, according to the dictionary, it doesn't. Wiretap is a very specific term. It means to tap a telephone or telegraph wire. It's an old definition. In order to get information, he's referring to it, he says, more generally. Do you think that's fair or not?
No, I think it's really would be laughable if it wasn't so serious. No, wiretap is a wiretap, and particularly when he elaborates that he believed that President Obama was tapping his phones. So I certainly don't think that wiretap is broad enough to cover what is really a baseless accusation, a complete fabrication by the President of the United States. It's certainly not broad enough to cover that. And that is exactly, unfortunately, what is involved here.
So I want to play again a little bit more of what the president said today about the wiretap investigations, because he said more information is coming. You're obviously the one in the investigation. You're seeing it. Here's what he said.
I think you're going to find some very interesting items coming to the forefront over the next 2 weeks.
You, again, are the one receiving this information on the House Intelligence Committee. Have you seen anything very interesting? Do you have any idea what these things could be and why they would be coming over the next couple weeks?
Sure. First of all, we have seen nothing, no evidence to support the president's claim, nor does anyone really expect to. I think what the president is saying is in 2 weeks, look forward to me giving you another obfuscation, another distortion, another feint. Maybe I'll tell you that in another couple of weeks I'll come up with yet another explanation. Of course, over the last couple of weeks, we have seen endless permutations by Sean Spicer and Kellyanne Conway and others as they try to rationalize, make sense of, explain away what you really can't, that he accused his predecessor of being bad and sick and wiretapping him. And I do want to underscore why this is important, because some would write it off as just the president being the president. But first of all, like his comments to Bill O'Reilly when he said, we're no different than Russia, Putin's a killer, but how are we any better? These comments that his predecessor wiretapped him also undermine our democracy. They play into the Russian narrative of things that, yes, Russia, we don't make any bones about it. We're a corrupt kleptocracy. We don't really pretend otherwise. So are the Americans. They're just hypocritical about it. And when you have a president of the United States saying basically Putin is right, I've been bugged by my predecessor, we're equally corrupt, that just feeds that whole destructive narrative.
Congressman, one thing, though, that I'm trying to understand, and this is a tough one, right? But we understand there's questions out there, and I ask you, is it possible that there was some sort of surveillance, right, obviously, of Russians who were having conversations with people in Trump Tower, or of Russians who may have been in Trump Tower, right, that there was surveillance that ended up picking up the Trump campaign and things that they said? Is that possible?
Well, you know, it's certainly possible, for example, that when we look at foreign spies talking to each other, that we might collect what's called incidental collection, where either a foreign spy talks to an American or a foreign spy talks to another foreign spy about an American. That's called incidental collection. But of course, that is not only lawful, but it's also not what the president was talking about. He was explicitly talking about Barack Obama bugging him in Trump Tower.
Yeah.
And I don't think he can walk away from that baseless accusation by trying to say, well, you know, somewhere at some point in some country at some time, there may be something that I can hang my hat on.